You know that moment when you're casually scrolling through your husband's iPad and discover he's been working late with his secretary instead of at the office? Those urgent business meetings? Just code for screwing his 26-year-old assistant in the conference room while I was at home alphabetizing his sock drawer. That Thursday night, I stood in our pristine kitchen, hands trembling as I held our family iPad, staring at messages that could make a romance novelist blush. 15 years of marriage reduced to digital proof that my husband, Sterling Barrett, Greenwich's most respected financial executive, was nothing more than a walking midlife crisis cliché. "Working late again, honey. Don't wait up," he had texted me 3 hours earlier. Meanwhile, he was messaging Paige. "Conference room B, wear that skirt. The worst part? Not discovering the affair on our anniversary. Not even realizing it through texts with a woman young enough to be babysat by our teenage daughter. No. The worst part was seeing myself as the punchline of my own life, the oblivious wife who gave up her marketing career to manage the home while her husband managed assets with his secretary. I'm Eloise Barrett, by the way, former marketing executive, current collector of designer yoga pants, and apparently now curator of my husband's dirty laundry. Literally and figuratively. Our story unfolds in Greenwich, Connecticut, where hedges are as meticulously trimmed as marriages are secretly dysfunctional, where women like me host charity galas while pretending not to notice husbands disappearing with young assistants during cocktail hour. That Thursday night, while our kids Audrey, 14, and Mason, 11, were at sleepovers, I had planned a surprise anniversary dinner. 15 years of marriage deserved at least some mediocre candlelight and overpriced champagne. I'd booked Valbella, ordered flowers, even bought lingerie that required an engineering degree to put on. Instead, I stood in our gourmet kitchen, which looked like it belonged on a cooking show, despite the fact that we ordered takeout 4 nights a week. My perfect blowout was wilting, along with my illusions about my marriage as I scrolled through months of messages between Sterling and his secretary. "Can't stop thinking about." "Yesterday," she had written 3 days ago. "That dress is my kryptonite," he'd replied to a photo I won't describe. I poured myself a generous glass of anniversary champagne and kept scrolling. Sterling and I hadn't had sex in 3 months, but apparently he and Paige were making up for that deficit. A normal woman might have broken down crying or called her mother or best friend. I laughed instead. Not the cute, feminine giggle Sterling once bragged about at cocktail parties, but a full-throated, borderline unhinged laugh that echoed through our 5-bedroom colonial. The sheer unoriginality of it all was what got me. CEO sleeps with secretary. Sterling, that's the best midlife crisis you could come up with. For a man who prided himself on disruptive financial strategies, his personal life was about as innovative as a beige throw pillow. I sipped my champagne and felt something inside shift. The perfectly curated Eloise Barrett, the one who remembered every birthday in Sterling's family, coordinated our Christmas card outfits 6 months in advance, made sure his dry cleaning was ready for trips, was clocking out. In her place stood someone I hadn't seen in 15 years, the woman who once orchestrated marketing campaigns so aggressive they made competitors nervous. I opened our shared calendar app, which Sterling clearly forgot I could access, and saw he was scheduled to attend his firm's holiday party the next evening at the Del Mar, the annual event where board members considering him for COO would be present with their wives, and Paige would play the role of efficient assistant rather than afternoon delight. Then it hit me with the subtlety of a freight train. Sterling always complained about my obsession with laundry, how I separated his workout clothes from casual wear, used specific detergents for dress shirts versus golf polos, and folded his boxers into perfect rectangles organized by color. Well, if he appreciated my laundry skills so little, perhaps Paige would value them more. I marched to our basement laundry room, where the hamper held nearly 2 weeks' worth of Sterling's dirty clothes. He'd been too busy to bring them down. Too busy indeed. I pulled out every pair of boxers, every sweat-stained undershirt, every sock with that unmistakable man smell. Resist the smell no amount of Tide could fully erase. I grabbed the mesh lingerie bag I used for delicates and began stuffing it with Sterling's most intimate items. The boxers with skid marks, the undershirts with suspicious stains, the gray ones that had once been white. By midnight, a plan had formed. Not the dignified, lawyer-approved plan the Greenwich Housewife Handbook would suggest, but a plan the old Eloise, the one who once persuaded a room full of executives to double a marketing budget during a recession, knew would be far more effective. Surprisingly, I slept well that night, alone in our king-size bed with its absurdly high thread count sheets. Sterling texted at 1 a.m. saying he was crashing at the office because he was working on something big. I had no doubt he was. The next morning, I got the kids off to school with their usual Friday enthusiasm. Audrey barely looked up from her phone, and Mason was too wrapped up in his weekend fortnight plans to notice anything different about Mom. Sterling called to say he'd meet me directly at the holiday party that evening. Another busy day at the office, he claimed. I responded with the kind of feigned sincerity usually reserved for thanking your mother-in-law for an ugly sweater. As I sipped my morning coffee in the breakfast nook, watching a group of neighborhood women power walk past in perfectly coordinated athleisure, I reflected on the woman I'd become. I'd traded boardroom presentations for PTA meetings, strategy sessions for meal planning, and for what? So Sterling could live out the most basic infidelity storyline known to man. Well, if he wanted basic, I was about to deliver something far more original. I spent the day preparing. Hair done at Becker Salon. Balayage doesn't maintain itself during a crisis. Picked up my dry-cleaned Armani dress, classic black with just enough décolletage to remain tasteful yet noticeable. Even got a mani-pedi in rage red, a color I normally avoided for being too loud. All the while, Sterling's mesh bag of dirty underwear sat in the trunk of my Volvo like a ticking time bomb. After 15 years of orchestrating perfect dinner parties and school fundraisers, I had a certain talent for event management, and tonight's holiday party was about to be the most memorable in Barrett financial history. The question wasn't whether I'd confront Sterling's infidelity. It was how spectacularly I would do it. Presentation, after all, is everything, and Greenwich housewives understand that better than anyone. The Barrett financial holiday party at the Del Mar was the very definition of Greenwich parody. Men in nearly identical Navy suits pretending their seven-figure bonuses were modest this year, while their wives compared vacation homes and plastic surgeons in the same breath. I arrived fashionably late, exactly 17 minutes after the stated start time, early enough to appear eager, late enough to make an entrance. The valet gave my Volvo the slightly disappointed look reserved for cars under 6 figures, oblivious to the fact that the most valuable item inside wasn't the vehicle, but the mesh laundry bag tucked into my designer tote. The ballroom was decorated in corporate Christmas chic, just enough sparkle to celebrate the season without offending anyone who observed something else. A 10-foot tree dripping with silver and blue ornaments, naturally the company colors, dominated one corner, while dollar-sign-shaped ice sculptures slowly melted on the buffet table. I spotted Sterling immediately. It's a wife's superpower to locate her husband in a crowded room, especially when he's standing suspiciously close to his 20-something secretary. Sterling held court near the bar, one hand gesturing emphatically as he explained some brilliant financial strategy, the other resting just a little too comfortably on Paige's lower back. Paige, in a dress probably worth her entire monthly salary, gazed up at him with the kind of adoration usually reserved for boy bands or religious figures. Her desk might be outside Sterling's office, but it was clear she spent plenty of time inside it. "Eloise, there you are?" My best friend Vera Mitchell materialized at my side, champagne flute already in hand. I was starting to worry you'd skip this thrilling display of corporate self-congratulation. Vera had been my sanity anchor since we both moved to Greenwich a decade ago. Her husband, Curtis, also worked at Barrett Financial, but unlike Sterling, Curtis actually seemed to enjoy going home to your husband and miss watching middle-aged men get progressively handsy as the open bar works its magic? "Never," I replied, accepting the glass Vera offered. "You look different tonight," Vera said, studying my face. "Did you finally try that new Botox place in Stamford?" "No," I said casually. "Just the sudden clarity that comes with discovering your husband is sleeping with his secretary." Vera nearly choked on her champagne. "He's what?" "Sleeping with Paige, having an affair." dipping his pen in the company ink. Pick whichever euphemism suits you best. I sipped my champagne. I found their texts last night, on our anniversary. That absolute dumpster fire of a human being, Vera whispered, eyes darting toward Sterling, now laughing with Warren Barrett. His father and the company founder? What are you going to do? Please tell me you've called Patricia. Patricia was the divorce attorney who had guided half of the Greenwich Yacht Club through marital dissolutions. Oh, I have something more immediate planned, I said, patting my tote bag. Something a bit more public. Vera's eyes widened. Eloise Barrett, what do you have in that bag? 15 years of laundry service, gift-wrapped for the other woman. Before Vera could respond, Warren Barrett spotted me and waved me over. He had always liked me, probably because I had spent years making his son look good. There's my favorite daughter-in-law, Warren boomed as I approached. At 70, he still had the energy and volume of a man half his age. Sterling was just telling us about the Robertson account. Brilliant work, was he? I smiled, giving Sterling a look that made him visibly uncomfortable. He's been working so hard lately. All those late nights at the office. Just doing what needs to be done. Sterling cleared his throat. Isn't that the truth? I said sweetly, turning to Paige, who hovered nearby with her tablet, playing the role of devoted assistant. Paige, you look lovely tonight. That dress is stunning. Thank you, Mrs. Barrett, she replied, blushing. It's just something I picked up at Nordstrom. How resourceful of you, I said. Sterling always appreciates a woman who knows how to maximize her resources. Don't you, honey? Sterling loosened his tie slightly. Eloise, have you met the new board members? They're eager to chat about the charity gala you chaired last spring. Classic deflection. He'd always been good at redirecting uncomfortable conversations, a skill that probably served him well, juggling a wife and a mistress. I'd be delighted, but first I need to give Paige something. A token of appreciation, if you will. Warren clapped his hands. Always the thoughtful one. This is why everyone loves Eloise. Never forgets anyone. If only he knew how thoughtful I was about to be. Paige, could I see you by your desk for a moment? I brought something that might be useful for your position. Sterling's face went from uncomfortable to alarmed. Eloise, maybe now isn't. Nonsense. It'll just take a minute. We'll be right back. I linked my arm through Paige's, leaving Sterling no choice but to watch us walk away, or make a scene in front of his father and the board members deciding his professional fate. Paige's desk was in the executive suite on the top floor, open for the party so guests could admire the harbor views. A few couples were already on the balcony, taking in the December lights reflecting on the water. Mrs. Barrett, is everything okay? Paige asked as we reached her meticulously organized workstation. A framed photo of Sterling and the executive team next to her computer. Sterling front and center. That depends on your definition of okay, I said, placing my tote bag on her desk. Tell me, Paige, do you know what today is? She blinked those expertly mascaraed eyelashes. Friday, December 13th. Yes, but more specifically, it's the day after my 15th wedding anniversary. The anniversary. My husband forgot because he was too busy sending you inappropriate texts about your skirt. The color drained from her face. Mrs. Barrett? I don't know what. Oh, spare me the innocent act. It's beneath both of us. I opened my bag and pulled out the mesh laundry sack. You know, when I gave up my marketing career to support Sterling, I took on many roles. Chief among them, extraordinaire. I upended the bag on her desk. Sterling's dirty underwear cascaded across her keyboard, notepad, and the fancy company pen set she'd arranged just so. 15 years of marriage reduced to a pile of stained boxers and sweaty undershirts. Since you've been handling my husband's business, I thought you might want to handle his laundry too, I said, as Paige stared in horror at the intimate items now strewn across her desk. The skid marks on the blue ones. He really needs to increase his fiber intake. By now, a small crowd had gathered. The executive floor was never this accessible, and partygoers couldn't resist exploring. What they found was Greenwich's most talked-about financial executive's dirty laundry, literally, spread across his secretary's desk. What in God's name is going on here? Sterling appeared, face flushed with either rage, embarrassment, or both. His father stood right behind him, along with 3 board members and their wives. "Just dropping off your dirty laundry, dear," I said cheerfully. "Since Paige has been handling so many of your personal needs, I figured she wouldn't mind taking on one more." Warren Barrett stared at the display, then at his son, bushy eyebrows nearly reaching his hairline. "Sterling? What is she talking about?" I pulled out my phone and held it up, displaying one of the more explicit exchanges between Sterling and Paige. "Would you like me to read this aloud? Or would you prefer I just email it to the board's distribution list? I believe I'm still on it from planning the summer golf fundraiser." The room went silent enough to hear the ice sculptures melting downstairs. Sterling stepped toward me, voice low. "Eloise, you're making a scene." "No, Sterling," I corrected loudly for everyone to hear. "You made the scene when you decided to sleep with your secretary instead of coming home for our anniversary. I'm just making sure the backdrop is properly decorated." Vera appeared at my side, a look of horrified delight on her face. She slipped her arm through mine in solidarity. "Mrs. Barrett," one of the board members' wives said, "perhaps we should discuss this privately." "Why? My husband didn't keep it private." "Why should I?" I turned back to Paige, who looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her whole. "By the way, he likes his dress shirts starched and he's allergic to fabric softener. Just FYI. As I turned to leave with Vera, I paused beside Sterling. "I'll see you at home. Don't wait up." I echoed his text from the night before, then added sweetly, "Oh, and happy anniversary." The walk through the holiday party to the exit felt like a victory lap. Behind me, chaos erupted in the executive suite, with Sterling scrambling to salvage both his reputation and his promotion prospects. But the night was young, and I was just getting started. By Saturday morning, my underwear exhibition had become the talk of Greenwich faster than you could say non-disclosure agreement. My phone was blowing up with messages, some supportive, others feigning concern while fishing for juicy details. The Greenwich grapevine operates with an efficiency the CIA would envy. I was enjoying my coffee in peaceful solitude when Sterling finally came home, looking like he'd spent the night in his office chair, which he probably had. "Have you completely lost your mind?" he demanded, throwing his keys on the kitchen counter with enough force to chip our imported marble. That would bother him later. Sterling was very particular about surfaces in a home he rarely cleaned. "Good morning to you, too," I replied, not bothering to look up from my New York Times crossword. "There's coffee in the pot, though you might prefer Paige to fetch it for you. Do you have any idea what you've done?" He paced, designer shoes squeaking against our pristine hardwood floors. "Warren has postponed the board's decision on my promotion. 15 years of work and you destroyed it in 5 minutes with your childish stunt." I carefully set down my pen and looked at him. Really looked at him. The man I had married 15 years ago had been ambitious but principled. Somewhere along the way, he kept the ambition and jettisoned everything else. "Correction," I said. "You destroyed it when you decided to have an affair with your 26-year-old secretary." "I just made the destruction public," Sterling ran his hands through his hair, a gesture that once made my heart flutter, but now only reminded me of how much we'd spent on his premium shampoo. "It wasn't an affair," he said, voice lower now. It was just flirting. A stupid mistake." I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. "Flirting? Should I read the texts aloud? The ones where you describe what you did to her in the conference room after hours? Or maybe we should discuss the hotel. Receipts I found when I was going through our credit card statements this morning." That got his attention. His face went pale beneath his weekend stubble. "You went through our financial records?" "I went through everything, Sterling. While you were busy doing damage control at the office, I was doing reconnaissance at home." I took a satisfied sip of coffee. "Did you really think I wouldn't notice the charges at the Delmare on random Wednesday afternoons? We live 15 minutes away. Why would you need a hotel room unless you were entertaining?" The truth was I hadn't noticed. Not until now. I'd been too busy being the perfect wife, managing our perfect life, to see that it was all built on quicksand. But Sterling didn't need to know that my detective work had been retroactive rather than proactive. It was a mistake, he repeated, sinking into a kitchen chair. A stupid midlife crisis. It didn't mean anything. That's fascinating, I said, closing my newspaper. Because I just got off the phone with Patricia Hollingsworth. Sterling's head snapped up. Everyone in Greenwich knew Patricia, the divorce attorney who had taken half the hedge fund managers in Fairfield County to the cleaners. You called a divorce lawyer? His voice cracked slightly. Eloise, don't you think you're overreacting? We can work through this. Can we? Because I'm not sure I want to, I said, standing and walking to the refrigerator, pulling out a picture-perfect glass of fresh squeezed orange juice I'd prepared earlier. Orange juice? He asked, bewildered. I made it this morning. No pulp, just how you like it. Sterling stared as if I'd grown a second head. You're offering me juice while telling me you're divorcing me? Multitasking is my superpower, I said. You used to call it annoying when I'd plan a charity gala while cooking dinner and helping Mason with his science project. I poured him a glass anyway. And I didn't say I'm divorcing you. I said I called Patricia. What's the difference? He took the juice, probably out of habit. The difference is Patricia gave me options, I said, leaning against the counter. And unlike you, I believe in exploring all my options before making a commitment. Just then, Audrey wandered in, eyes glued to her phone. At 14, she'd perfected the art of being simultaneously present and completely checked out. Mom, Olivia's mom wants to know if you're still chaperoning the winter formal next week or if you're too busy destroying Dad's career. She didn't even look up as she delivered the bomb. Sterling choked on his orange juice. What? Audrey finally glanced up, shrugging with the indifference only a teenager can muster. It's all over Instagram, Dad. Mrs. Peterson got it on video. You're basically a meme now. She opened the refrigerator and grabbed a yogurt. By the way, Mason's at Tyler's until noon. Tyler's mom said she'll drop him off. With that, she drifted back upstairs, leaving Sterling and me in stunned silence. A video? Sterling whispered, horror dawning on his face. Apparently. I hadn't known about the video until now, but I wasn't about to admit that. The joys of living in the digital age. Nothing stays private anymore. Not affairs, not dirty laundry, nothing. Sterling looked like he might be sick on our custom tile backsplash. Eloise, what do you want? Money? The house? Just tell me what will make this go away. And there it was. The assumption that everything had a price. That's how Sterling had navigated his entire adult life, identifying what people wanted and calculating if he could afford to give it to them. What I want, I said carefully, is something you can't buy. Try me, he challenged, desperation giving him a fleeting surge of confidence. I want you to understand what it feels like to have your value determined by someone else, to be reduced to a function rather than a person. Sterling's forehead creased. What are you talking about? For 15 years, I've been the CEO of this household. I've managed our social calendar, raised our children, maintained our home, supported your career, and organized every aspect of your personal life. Yet, somewhere along the way, you decided I was replaceable, or at least parts of me were. I walked to the built-in desk in our kitchen, where I kept our family's paperwork meticulously organized. From the drawer, I pulled out a manila folder. This is my counteroffer, I said, sliding it across the island to him. Counteroffer to what? Sterling asked, not touching the folder. To divorce? Patricia helped me draft it yesterday. He finally opened the folder and began reading. His expression morphed from confusion to disbelief. This is insane, he muttered, flipping through the pages. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Think of it as a postnuptial agreement. The terms are simple. You can stay in this marriage and in this house, but with some adjustments to your job description. Sterling looked up at me. My job description? Since you seem to value Paige's professional contributions over my domestic ones, I thought it was time for a role reversal. I tapped the document. You'll take over all household duties: laundry, cleaning, cooking, carpool, social coordination. Everything I've been doing while you've been building your career and pursuing extracurricular activities. And what will you be doing? He asked, voice dangerously quiet. "I've accepted a position at Mitchell Creative," I replied with a smile. "Vera's husband, Curtis, has been trying to recruit me for years to rebuild their marketing department. I start on Monday." Sterling's jaw actually dropped. "You took a job without discussing it with me?" "Oh, I'm sorry. Did I need to consult you before making decisions about my body and my time?" "That's interesting, because you certainly didn't consult me before spending yours with Paige." The front door opened and closed, followed by the sound of 11-year-old feet pounding through the hallway. "Mom! Dad! Tyler's got the new PlayStation and his mom says they might get a dog. Can we please get a dog too?" Mason burst into the kitchen, all freckles and energy, oblivious to the tension. "We'll talk about it later, buddy," I said, ruffling his hair. "Why don't you go upstairs and take a shower? You smell like you slept in a bag of chips." "That's because Tyler's mom let us have chips for breakfast," he announced proudly before racing upstairs. When he was gone, Sterling carefully closed the folder. "You're using our children as pawns?" "No, Sterling. I'm protecting them from understanding exactly how their father has betrayed their mother, which is more than you deserve." I picked up my coffee mug and headed for the doorway, then paused. "You have until Monday morning to decide. Option 1, sign the agreement and commit to the new arrangement. Option 2, I file for divorce and Patricia ensures that your dirty laundry becomes public record during proceedings. Your choice." I left him sitting there, staring at the document that would redefine our marriage if he chose to save it. Upstairs, I closed my bedroom door and finally allowed myself a moment of uncertainty. I'd spent the last 24 hours operating on pure adrenaline and righteous anger. The strategic planner in me had taken over, but now, in the quiet of my room, I wondered if I was making the right choice. Then my phone pinged with a text notification. It was Vera. "Battle station's ready. Operation Phoenix is a go whenever you are." I smiled. The old Eloise, the marketing executive who had once orchestrated campaigns that changed consumer behavior nationwide, wasn't just back. She was just getting warmed up. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp December chill that makes Connecticut women clutch their cashmere cardigans a little tighter. I stood in front of my closet, the one Sterling had always joked was bigger than our first apartment, and surveyed my options with fresh eyes. No more Greenwich housewife uniform of designer yoga pants and discreet jewelry. Today called for corporate armor. I selected a sleek charcoal suit I'd preserved like a museum artifact from my previous life, paired with heels that meant business and red lipstick that screamed it. 15 years of school bake sales hadn't diminished my ability to dress for the kill. Sterling had spent the weekend alternating between sulking in his home office and making awkward attempts at reconciliation, including a pathetic bouquet of grocery store flowers and an offer to talk things through over dinner. I'd declined both, spending my time instead finalizing strategy with Vera and getting my professional wardrobe in order. When I came downstairs, Sterling was standing in the kitchen holding the document I'd presented him, his signature freshly scrolled across the bottom. He looked like a man attending his own funeral. "I signed it," he said unnecessarily, holding it out to me. "I hope you're satisfied." I accepted the folder with a pleasant smile. "Satisfaction isn't really the goal here, Sterling. Accountability is." He loosened his tie, the burgundy Hermes I'd given him last Christmas. "So what happens now?" "Now," I said, checking my watch. "You drive the kids to school. Audrey first, then Mason. Mason has basketball practice after school, so he needs to be picked up at 5:30, not 3:15. There's a casserole in the refrigerator with baking instructions taped to the top. The dry cleaning needs to be picked up by noon, and the housekeeper called in sick, so you'll need to handle the bathrooms before the Mitchells come over. For dinner at 7. Sterling stared at me, dumbfounded. "Dinner with the Mitchells tonight?" "Yes. I've already accepted the position with Curtis, remember? We're celebrating. I took the liberty of putting the details in your calendar, the one you apparently only check for hotel rendezvous with assistants half your age." His face reddened. "Eloise, I have a meeting with the board today. They're reconsidering the promotion after I spent the entire weekend doing damage control." "How nice for you," I replied, gathering my new designer briefcase. I have a meeting with the executive team at Mitchell Creative to outline my strategy for revamping their entire marketing approach. I suppose we'll both have an interesting Monday. I can't just drop everything to be a house husband, he protested, following me toward the garage door. I turned to face him. Interesting. That's exactly what you asked me to do 15 years ago when Audrey was born. Just for a few years, you said. We can afford it, you said. Family comes first, you said. Tell me, Sterling, was Paige considered family too? Or more of an extracurricular activity that shut you up faster than a market crash? The school drop-off line starts getting congested around 7:45, so you'll want to leave in about 10 minutes, I advised, checking my lipstick in the hallway mirror. Oh, and don't forget, the lunch accounts need to be topped up today. The portal password is in the household binder in my desk drawer. Good luck. I walked out the door to the sound of Sterling frantically calling for the kids to hurry, a symphony I'd conducted solo for a decade and a half. Mitchell Creative occupied a renovated warehouse in Stamford with the kind of industrial chic aesthetic that screamed, "We're creative but also successful." When I walked in, Vera was waiting in the lobby, practically vibrating with excitement. "You look incredible," she gushed, embracing me like a phoenix rising from a pile of dirty underwear. Poetic as always, I laughed. Is everything ready? Curtis has the whole team assembled in the conference room. And you'll never guess who reached out this morning asking if we had any positions available. I raised an eyebrow. Who? Paige Monroe. Vera's grin was downright predatory. Apparently she's suddenly finding the atmosphere at Barrett Financial uncomfortable. I couldn't help but laugh. Did she happen to mention if she had any laundry experience? I told her we'd keep her resume on file. Vera snickered as I dropped it in the circular file. The morning at Mitchell Creative was a blur of introductions, presentations, and the heady rush of being valued for my brain rather than my hosting skills. By noon, I'd already approved a new campaign direction and scheduled meetings with 3 potential clients who'd apparently been waiting for someone with actual vision to join the firm. During lunch, my phone buzzed with a text from Sterling. How do I reschedule a dental cleaning? Dr. Peterson's office called and Mason was supposed to go in today at 2. I didn't bother replying. Learning through failure had always been Sterling's preferred method, for others at least. Now he could try it himself. Another text followed 10 minutes later. Found the portal password, but it's not working. Kids say they're literally starving to death. Direct quote from Mason. And then, dry cleaner says they don't have anything under Barrett. And finally, it's under your name, isn't it? Everything's under my name. Bingo. 15 years of marriage. And he was just now realizing that the infrastructure of our entire lives, from dry cleaning accounts to doctor appointments, had been invisibly managed by me. I silenced my phone and returned to my meeting, where people were actually taking notes on what I had to say. That evening, I arrived home at 6:45 to find our house in a state that could generously be described as lived in and accurately described as post-apocalyptic. Dishes filled the sink, school bags exploded across the entryway, and Sterling stood in the middle of the kitchen looking like he'd gone 10 rounds with a tornado. The casserole burned, he announced, gesturing to a blackened dish in the sink. And Mason spilled an entire gallon of milk trying to make cereal for a snack. Fascinating, I replied, setting down my briefcase. The Mitchells will be here in 15 minutes. I know. His voice rose an octave. I've ordered pizza, but the place said it might be late, and I couldn't find the good napkins. And Audrey is refusing to come downstairs because apparently everyone at school saw the video of you dumping my underwear on Paige's desk. I poured myself a glass of the Cabernet Sterling had opened, poorly, judging by the cork bits floating in it. The good napkins are in the dining room sideboard, second drawer on the left, behind the placemats. The candles are there too. Audrey will come down if you tell her Vera is bringing the new Sephora holiday collection for her to preview. And pizza is fine, I instructed, taking a sip and grimacing at the cork. Oh, and the board called me today, I added. Sterling froze mid-motion, frantically wiping down the counter. The board of Barrett Financial called you. Why? He asked. Apparently, Warren was quite impressed with my directness at the holiday party, I explained, swirling my wine. He said it reminded him of how I used to handle difficult clients back when I worked in marketing, and when we first met. He also mentioned he's reevaluating the company's direction, particularly regarding executive leadership. Sterling's voice barely rose above a whisper. What does that mean? It means, I said, setting down my glass, your father is considering whether someone who can't manage their personal affairs ethically should be trusted to manage client investments. He's invited me to lunch tomorrow to discuss my thoughts on the matter. Before Sterling could respond, the doorbell rang. That'll be the Mitchells, I said cheerfully. You might want to change your shirt. You have what looks like spaghetti sauce on the collar. The Italian place on Main never seals their takeout containers properly. As Sterling raced upstairs, I opened the door to Vera and Curtis, both grinning like they'd won the lottery. How was day one of the Sterling Barrett rehabilitation program? Curtis asked, handing me a bottle of proper wine. Educational, I replied. For both of us. Vera peered around at the chaotic house. I see he's excelling at domestic management the same way he excelled at marital fidelity. He's learning, I said, accepting the Sephora bag Vera had brought for Audrey. Sometimes growth requires a complete breakdown of the existing structure. Curtis nodded appreciatively. I see the marketing strategist never really left you. She was just rebranding, I winked, leading them into the disaster zone Sterling was now frantically trying to tame. Watching the man who once lectured me on presentation scramble to fold, throw blankets, and hide dirty dishes brought a satisfaction no amount of retail therapy could match. The best revenge, I was discovering, wasn't just living well. It was making sure the person who wronged you had a front row seat to your renaissance. 1 year later, I stood in our now immaculate kitchen, watching through the window as Sterling struggled to hang Christmas lights on our maple tree. The same task he'd once declared too tedious and hired people to do. It was now firmly part of his job description, along with laundry, meal planning, and maintaining our social calendar. He's using the wrong ladder again, Vera observed, sipping her coffee beside me. I know, I replied, but he'll figure it out when he can't reach the top branches. Growth requires failure. You're positively zen these days, Vera laughed. Corporate success agreed with me. In the 12 months since returning to the workforce, Mitchell Creative had doubled its client roster thanks to my marketing overhaul. I'd been promoted to Chief Marketing Officer in just 6 months. Finally earning an office with an actual door instead of those ridiculous open-concept cubicles that make everyone feel like they're perpetually auditioning for their jobs. Speaking of corporate success, Vera continued, have you made a decision about Warren's offer? Yes, the offer. 4 months after my infamous underwear exhibit, Warren Barrett had restructured Barrett Financial's executive team. Sterling kept his job but lost his shot at the executive suite. Instead, Warren had created a new position, Chief of Client Relations, and offered it to me. I'm still considering it, I said, watching Sterling nearly topple from the ladder. The irony is delicious, but I'm not sure I want to work with my husband every day. I've just gotten used to having adult conversations that don't involve permission slips or pasta preferences. Through the window, I saw Audrey emerge from the house, phone in hand as always, ready to critique her father's decorating efforts. At 15, she had finally blossomed once freed from the shadow of our previously dysfunctional marriage. Mason, now 12, was at basketball practice, driven there by Sterling in the minivan he once refused to be seen in, now piloted with grim determination. With steely determination, the kind of focus that no luxury car or designer bag could substitute for school carpools, Sterling tackled the morning routine. The doorbell rang and Vera raised an eyebrow. Expecting someone? Just the final touch to our holiday preparations, I said, smiling as I headed to answer it. On the porch stood Paige Monroe, clutching a large shopping bag, noticeably less polished than her secretary days. After the holiday party debacle, she had left Barrett Financial and, through a series of career missteps, completely unrelated to any subtle sabotage from me, had landed at the high-end cleaning service we used for special occasions. "Mrs. Barrett," she nodded stiffly. "I'm here for the pre-holiday deep clean." "Of course," I said warmly, stepping aside. "Sterling will show you where the supplies are." He's become quite the expert on household management. The look that passed between Paige and Sterling when he walked inside and saw her in our foyer was priceless, worth every penny of the cleaning service is exorbitant. Fee. Paige will be helping with holiday prep. I explained to Sterling, "Since we're hosting both families this year, an extra pair of hands will be useful. You already know each other's preferences, so I'm sure you'll work wonderfully together." Sterling's face cycled through at least 5 distinct emotions before settling on resigned acceptance. This was our new normal. I made the money and the decisions. He made the beds and dinner. "The guest bathroom needs special attention," he told Paige in the professional tone he had developed for domestic matters. "The kids have friends over constantly, and somehow they manage to get toothpaste literally everywhere." Vera slow-clapped beside me. "That was either the cruelest or most brilliant thing I've ever witnessed. Why not both?" I shrugged. "It's not cruelty, it's closure for all of us." That evening, with the house gleaming and the children engrossed in holiday movies, Sterling and I sat in the living room with glasses of wine, properly open this time, as domestic failure had made him surprisingly adept at handling corks. "Warren called again about the position," Sterling said, breaking our comfortable silence. "He thinks you're the missing piece in the company's client strategy." "And what do you think?" I asked, curious despite myself. Sterling considered his glass. "I think my father recognizes talent when he sees it. I think I was an idiot to ever take you for granted, and I think that if anyone deserves that corner office with the harbor view, it's you." I studied him. The man I had married, lost, and then rediscovered in the strangest of ways. Over the past year, the entitlement had been scrubbed away along with countless pasta stains and bathroom messes. In its place was something I hadn't seen since we were young: humility. "You know what's ironic?" I said. "For 15 years I managed our home while you managed investments. Now I manage campaigns while you manage our home. We've completely switched roles, and somehow we're both better at our new jobs than we were at our old ones." Sterling laughed. A genuine laugh, not the forced social chuckle he reserved for client dinners. "I made partner because I could chart market patterns. Turns out I completely missed the pattern in my own life. Partnership means actual partnership, not outsourcing the parts you don't want to deal with." I raised my glass to belated realizations. He clinked his against mine to dirty laundry, the kind you wash and the kind you air out. We sat in comfortable silence, the Christmas tree lights reflecting in the windows, until Sterling asked the question that had lingered between us for months. "Are we going to be okay, Eloise?" "Really okay?" I considered this carefully. The affair had fractured something fundamental, but its aftermath had forced a reconstruction stronger in ways I hadn't expected. "I think," I said slowly, "we're going to be something better than okay. We're going to be honest." Outside, snow began to fall, dusting our meticulously decorated yard with fresh possibilities. Sterling would shovel it in the morning, per our contract, but I might help him. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The greatest revenge isn't just making your cheating husband do laundry for eternity, though that part is undeniably satisfying. The greatest revenge is reclaiming yourself so completely that the betrayal becomes merely a plot point in your origin story, not the defining chapter. Or, as I like to put it, sometimes you have to air out all the dirty laundry to discover which relationships are color fast and which ones bleed.
And that wraps up today's story. Now we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and let's see how far these stories reach. If this story moved you or gave you chills, give it a like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories. One last thing, rate the story from 1 to 10 in the comments. Your feedback helps us bring you even better ones next time. Thanks for watching. We appreciate you being part of this storytelling journey.